put your mic on.
Okay, this many people are in the room, and they may not all want to speak, but
Yep.
beyond that, just ask if there's anybody else, and I know you know what you're doing. Tell me what
Yep. Thanks, Karen. All right. Good evening, everyone. We are here in person at the Reading Public Library, and we're also here by Zoom, and we have Caitlin, who's going to help us manage the people who are doing this virtually. My name is Bernie Lynch. I'm with Community Paradigm Associates, joined by Sharon Flaherty, also of Community Paradigm Associates, and we're working with the town, most specifically with the Select Board, to help them find a new town manager. As you know, Bob, the current town manager, will be leaving, I believe, in February, after a number of years in the position. So we're here to help the process of getting a new town manager. Just a little bit about Community Paradigm, just so you have a certain comfort level. We've been doing this across the Commonwealth for the last 7 years. We have helped fill 65, roughly, manager, town administrative positions around the Commonwealth. Over the last, my background is in municipal management. I was the town manager for the town of Chelmsford for 20 years and the city manager for the city of Lowell for almost 8 years. So I like to think that I come at this with a good understanding of municipal government and municipal management. Other members of the team that will be working on this project are former manager of Burlington, former assistant manager of North Andover. So again, we have decades of experience in municipal management. As I say, we've been doing this since 2014, that we've been, Community Paradigm has been in existence, 65 or so town managers and another 35 other positions in municipal government or regional government that we've worked on. Sharon's background is in journalism and communications, so she'll be here taking down everything you have to say and twisting it as journalists do. So no, just kidding about that. But essential to our process when we go out into a community is we spend time talking to the stakeholders to really get a sense of the issues that are facing the town and what people are looking for from whatever position we're filling, most specifically here, the town manager. We want to understand, so we talk to the select board members, we talk to the department heads, but we also think it's important to talk to the citizens. The community at large. We have a survey that's out on the street. We have, as of this afternoon, I think 100 responses to that survey, people giving us this type of information we're looking for, and then we like to, if possible, hold these forums. That's been more of a challenge the last 20 months during the pandemic. In fact, I think this is probably the first in-person forum we've done since February of 2020. So we're happy to be here in Reading to do this. Plus, we have the ability to do some of this virtually as well, with everyone getting used to Zoom. So you didn't come to, well, I know some of you came to listen, but I'm sure you didn't come all this way to listen to me. We're here to listen to you. And to listen to people who are going to be on this screen over the course of the next hour or two, to hear from you what you can tell us about Reading. What are the big issues? What are the challenges? What are the opportunities facing the town of Reading? What are the attributes?
In progress.
Style, skills that you think we should be looking for as we search for the next town manager. And we're happy to answer any questions you have regarding the process or anything else you want to ask us about this evening. So, who wants to start off telling us what you think? We drove up here from Plymouth, so please don't make this this is all, you can just speak from your seats, this is all being recorded.
I have just a question.
Sure.
So now Bob's resignation date is effective the end of February.
Correct.
So what is your anticipation in terms of when are you going to get a notice out? When do you think applicant, and how are they, if you can assuming they're in a position,
Mhm.
give notice to that job and be on board. So how do you see the
Great.
timeline working?
Sure. We have done most of our work, preparatory work. I think this is probably the last real major event. And then we'll put together a document that's a position profile that will be submitted to the board, the select board, for them to approve next week or the week after. That will, pull together. If you go to our website, communityparadigm.com, you'll see a sample or an example of what we do. And once that's approved and voted and approved, we will advertise immediately. We'll advertise here in the state through the Massachusetts Municipal Association. We'll advertise through the International City and County Management Association, which is primarily the national managers organization. And we use a number of other websites and posting sites that will distribute the information. We have our own database of potential candidates, and we'll reach out. Given the experience we have as managers, we know all the managers in the state, all the assistant managers, many department heads that are looking to potentially move up, and the process of real recruiting will begin. That takes about 4 weeks. So if we get out into this marketplace, let's say by the 18th or 19th, you're talking about resumes probably coming in the middle of November. A screening committee is being appointed by the board. We'll meet with them over the course of 2 or 3 weeks and review the resumes, determine who's going to be interviewed, conduct the interviews, identify the 3 or 4 finalists, and it's our hope to have those names to the board in time for them to conduct their interviews in mid-December, thereabouts, make their selection by the end of December, which is tough with the holidays, and an offer going out probably at the beginning of the year. Generally, there's a 30 to 60-day notice period. So I've given you that timeline, but, excuse me, I'll shut this off. Hopefully, we can speed that up in a few spots so that we make sure that someone's on for about a week or so with Bob. That's the goal. Okay. Did I answer everything you want there? In far more detail probably than you wanted, but.
It's great, thank you.
Okay,
I appreciate it.
certainly.
So I have been mentally thinking notes, I'll just dive right into it. So I've lived in Reading since 2000, so I got to experience Peter Heckenblecker, the previous town manager, and Bob, the current one. And I grew up in Medford where we had like long-term mayors there. And just like Pete was in long-term. And there's good and bad with that. I think they know the community. But one of the things, there's a lot that I like with Bob's leadership. If there's a crisis and you want someone who's responsive, he is so dependable. He's there. But I think we need a little bit more of a proactive kind of person who is going to not just anticipate things, but kind of is somebody willing to take charge of situations in the community that they're seeing happen versus sitting on the sidelines.
Okay.
And what I see in Reading, I tend to be a moderate person, but I recognize we have a conservative wing in our community and a progressive wing. It would be nice if I don't care what the persuasion of the person is, if they have the ability to bring everybody together, because I think that that's impeding some of our boards in getting things done. I have no idea how Bob is behind the scenes with town employees. That's a whole other level of leadership. I'm not, and they'll tell you what's needed there, but just as a member of the public, he's often quiet on the sidelines, and maybe that's needed, but sometimes, because I saw this with the changeover in superintendents in the school end, I think someone who's a bit more of a proactive communicator, reaching out when things are happening. And needless to say, like, one of Bob's best attributes has been his financial management skills, and you have to have that. We can't have somebody learning on the job.
Right.
But I just think maybe a bit more of a dynamic kind of person that will you know, just that we need some healing to this community too. We're not that bad, but that's just my perspective.
Okay.
With your
Okay. Okay.
But
We're not that bad.
we're not, you know, we're not Washington, but we need something, don't you?
Okay. Okay.
To
But,
piggyback off of
yes.
what you just said, I mean, I definitely agree. We need somebody who's more reactive than just always being proactive than always being reactive. We need someone who's going to be willing to say, you know, when they really feel that something is being done that's not right, or that they're willing to bite the bullet and take the heat for that, not someone who's going to fold because the latter part of the people want them to,
Okay.
in fear of what the outcome is going to be, but just to be fair
Okay.
and honest and dependable. We've had that in the past,
Mhm.
and we need that and more
Okay.
moving forward.
Okay.
And we need to also, amongst all of our boards and our community, find some diversity, not just white-collar men, but
Mhm.
we need some women, we need diversity across the board.
Sure.
You know, not just
Okay.
the old saying of, you know, white old men. We need women who represent a lot of the community. We need faces and people that represent us and
Right.
who are willing to do what the community needs to do to get done. Like Ms. Downing said, is help heal
Right.
and not hinder or fold when it's
Okay.
time to fight.
Okay. Great. Thank you. I should have noted when just you just reminded me of it. If you go to our website, I've already given you the address of that. Peter Heckenblecher actually is one of our associates. He hasn't worked on a project with us for a while, but he has worked with us in the past. So so it doesn't come as a
like
shock.
A town manager for hire, like an interim town
Yes.
manager for hire.
Yep. He does that and does projects as needed. So.
If we don't hire anyone, we can bring them back.
He's mostly in Florida now, so I probably.
I don't
So.
think he's leaving Florida to come back in February for the
So,
snow.
all right. Why don't we go to the Zoom? Caitlin, can we let our first virtual visitor in?
Yes, Mark Delaney.
Okay, Mark?
Good evening, how are you?
Very well. How are you doing?
Good, thanks for being here and having this forum. Great opportunity to get input from the residents. So my question is, before I ask my question, is I suspect any candidate will have the fundamentals, management experience, budgeting, town government related experience specific or knowledge of Reading itself. But one of the things, I would be very interested in knowing, with today's technology, information is key.
Sure.
Being able to access it easily, making it available to the public, to the many boards that do work, it is definitely one of the issues. If I was asking a candidate the question, what would be, your plans to update, the communication system here and make sure that the public can access, up-to-date information on things going on in the town.
Okay.
So, for what it's worth, that's my 2 cents.
Okay.
As far as what I'd be looking for, in addition to all the other qualities we need in a town manager, for our new town manager to speak to.
So, Mark, if just so I understand what when you speak of that, when you speak of the technology and the information, you're speaking to the issue of government transparency and making information readily accessible and available to the residents or non-residents that are interested in what's happening in the town of Reading.
Absolutely. I mean, today, you've got a world library at in the palm of your hand, right?
Yep.
But, at least I've had experience with difficulty in getting information at times.
Okay.
And listen, I appreciate, this is not a job for the faint of heart, right? I mean,
No.
there's a lot involved with a town manager. They've got their hands full. I'm going to give them that. But, in today's world, you should be able to get to relevant current information that's up to date really quickly, in my opinion. And I also think that the town's website, it has a lot of information on it, but you can get lost in there real easy. So, that's certainly one of the things, I would want to ask of any prospective town manager. What are their plans to update, whether it's the systems, certainly the access, transparency, accountability, all flows from that.
Great. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else here? In the audience?
audience.
Sir.
Good, thank you. I guess first, I had thought more of it in terms of the qualities we wanted in the town manager for the session, but when you mentioned things in town, the one thing that jumps to mind is development in town. I support smart growth. It's wonderful that we have a commuter station. I used that for many, many years to get to my job in Boston, but I'm really concerned that the density of the development in downtown is just overwhelming things, primarily the parking and the traffic.
Yep.
And I think it's just, these places aren't even full yet. I think
Right.
It's going to be a real zoo when that happens. I really think that's an issue we need to be paying more attention to. In terms of qualities of the town manager, I guess I have sort of 5 things I wanted to hit on. I'll try and do it quickly.
Sure.
One, somebody who values input, dialogue with, and decision-making by the volunteer residents in town who are engaged in town government. I sometimes get the feeling today that the full-time staff feel that these volunteers and this nighttime government, as it's sometimes referred to, are inhibiting them from doing their jobs and getting in their way. And I don't think that's the way, the proper attitude. We have a tremendous wealth of volunteers in this town to do a tremendous amount of work for the town. Second, to reiterate some of the points that were just made, a commitment to openness, transparency, timely sharing of information. And in part, I'm a elected town meeting member, so that resident volunteers on boards, committees, town meeting, can make informed decisions. I feel too often we're rushed because, there's a deadline coming up and we have to decide this now. I'm worried that this is happening in our special town meeting that's coming up in a couple of weeks, that there are deadlines coming, we have to make decisions quickly, when I don't feel we've had enough time or discussion about some of the issues. One other thing that may be related to that is accountability and responsiveness to citizen complaints. I'm willing to say that the town screwed up and we're going to fix this. The example that jumps to my mind, we have development right at the train station, where the developer built too close to the curb and violated a bunch of other things that were in the provisions, and the town, A, didn't pick up on it when it was happening, and B, at least to my knowledge, never said, whoops, we screwed up, we're going to fix this, and we never did anything to punish or get compensation from the developer, which I think was a huge mistake. This builds on what somebody else said, I think, as well. Innovative and forward thinking. And the example here that jumps to mind is we're just now in the process of applying to become a green community.
Mm-hmm.
My understanding is that 80% of the cities and towns in Massachusetts already are green communities. And my understanding is that the reason this is happening in Reading is because some of our volunteers and residents pushed it, not because the impetus came from our town government. And last, also reiterating some things that have been touched on, commitment to increasing diversity in our town staff. My understanding is that our town staff has literally one black person on it out of, I don't know what it is, 150 or something people. That to me is just not acceptable in this day and age. And also to be really an outspoken champion, as I think was touched on, for civil behavior and civil discourse in town, as along with proactively addressing just the much broader issues of equity and social justice that Reading has a ways to go on.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, I'll just going to, there's a lot to unpackage there that we're keeping track of. No, that's all right.
Submit my testimony.
That's all right. The one thing I'll say, the only comment I'll make is on the green communities. The reason most communities probably are ahead of Reading on that is because the communities that have municipal utilities weren't considered in the initial legislation, so you can't really get into it at this point. There's an effort to change the law to allow for that, but some other communities have been able to get away with it by having someone else in the community that is not part of the municipal utility. But that's the trigger point, unless
Yeah,
So-
I want to clarify that, because when I was a commissioner with the light department, I did push for that, but the reason that we couldn't was because Reading has 3 other communities that they're responsible for, and we weren't at that point ready to get the other 3 communities to line up with the green communities. It wasn't because we're municipal only, but most municipal light plants serve 1 community, but we serve 3 others.
Right.
And
Right.
that's now been kind of worked at and looked at more carefully, so they are.
I know it's an issue that many of the communities that we've been working with that have municipal have had this issue that they're dealing with. So, okay. Caitlin.
We have Jason up next.
Okay, Jason.
Hi. So one question I had was, to what degree, now that we're going to have a committee to do the search, to what degree will the job description be potentially looked at? Like, are we basically looking to hire someone who does all the exact same tasks as currently the town manager is, or will there be some degree to which the job description can be updated, edited, changed, and new tasks and other tasks added to it? Or maybe other stuff that maybe doesn't make any sense anymore taken away. Is like something that we're looking at, or are you basically, because of the speed of this, perhaps just looking to say, like, let's just get someone in the same job description we currently have?
Most of your job is, I'm guessing. So I'll leave open the possibility I might be a little off on this, but most of your job description is contained within your town charter. So to change your town charter is a very lengthy process. It would require, I can't recall how your charter was approved, but it would either be through a charter commission or it could be done through just a special act of the legislature, but that would take about a year plus to go through that process. But you can always change that in any event. But the committee will not be given that responsibility. The committee's responsibility is simply to screen the applicants that we have and help narrow down the candidate pool to a number that could be interviewed, and then further narrowing it down to those that will be sent on to the board.
Okay.
Okay? Yep.
I have 2 questions.
Yes.
Well, one, I wanted to touch on what the gentleman before me had said, was that I'm all for development and I'm all for community growth. I do think that if we're going to continue to grow our community and develop, that we need to be mindful. It's really nice that these contractors and companies are coming in and building new buildings and so forth, but if it's out of the reach of the community financially, it's not worth it. If you have 6 buildings going up in one area and 5 of them are condos, and one of them is being used for other uses, other financial aspects, and it's not worth it. It really isn't, and it's with the nature of the beast of today, what people are making and what people are dishing out are not equal. And I think that we need to take a look at that when we're agreeing to have developers come in and develop.
Okay. So the issue then that you want the manager to be aware of is to be able to balance development pressures with the other aspects of the community. Okay.
And building a little bit on what Sharilla and John were saying, with developers, not just with the Met, but I've seen with what's happened on Haven Street, the current town manager and maybe the assistant town manager, that whole thing with inspection, there seems to be a complacency of letting the developers do what they want instead of enforcing our own regulations regarding, the sizes, the size of signs and where to park and parking enforcement. And so part of the community effect is we feel like we're just being run over by developers doing what they want, and we have, whether it's been in town meeting or the church, we have regulations that has kind of been, well, we've always done it this way. I remember years ago when we were, the most recent override, we were looking for money, and I was asking, well, why are we plowing private sidewalks and different things for businesses for free? Well, Reading has always done it that way. well, we're planning on laying off teachers. We have to take tight looks. So maybe it's going with my proctor, but willing to look at things with fresh eyes. And
Okay.
we don't always have to do things the way they've been done in Reading, because we can see in some places it's not working. So I guess it'll be fresh eyes. There might be fresh eyes in our community who can do this, or outside.
Okay.
I think that also goes on what the gentleman who was just on said about, you know, our job description. If our job description has to be done through the town charter, then maybe it is time to take a look at it, especially since we're bringing someone else new in. And yes, it may take time, and make sure that the fine print is there. Your job description is tentative to, you know, change.
The charter is kind of really big. It's like, oh, the select board hires them. It's not that restrictive, I don't think.
Yeah. Right. Right. It lays out the responsibilities, the duties and responsibilities of a town manager, and the authorities of a town manager, and how the process works within the overall structure of government. That's for all intents and purposes a job description. So.
And well, my other question was, when we do narrow things down, will the town have an opportunity to talk to the potential candidates?
That remains to be seen, the next steps in that process. There are sometimes a way to facilitate something like that. Yep. But we need to, it's not our call.
My last question.
Sure.
I promise.
Yeah. I just want.
I promise. And the screening committee, how diverse is our screening committee?
They haven't been appointed yet. So, and again, it's not, we don't make that appointment, so. Okay. Diversity is an issue that, I will say this, diversity is an issue that we take very seriously, and we're pleased with the amount of diversity that we've been able to bring into the positions that we've helped fill. There is, you know, women, people of color have been underrepresented throughout a number of different sectors, but in particular, you know, we focus on municipal management. And part of it is, though, too, that fulfilling many of these positions, you need a feeder system. And there hasn't necessarily been the feeder system put in place. The profession has been working on it. In fact, this week, you know, I mentioned the ICMA, the International City and County Management Association. This week, they're holding their annual conference. And last week, their monthly magazine came out focused strictly on diversity, equity, and inclusion. And there've been efforts to try to build upon that. Here is a consultant to municipalities. We've had women as finalists in, I think, 80% of our searches. They've been chosen by the towns in probably 35% of all of our searches. So that's well up from where it was. We've had people of color that have been finalists, which is highly unusual. And in fact, we've had several people of color that have been appointed to manager positions here in the Commonwealth. So we make a real effort to broaden the pool when we do a search. Caitlin.
Yes, we have Angela next.
Hi, Angela.
Hi, thank you. This is very exciting to think of the next chapter in Reading. Obviously, someone with a financial background, management skills, all of those things, I'm sure, you know, you'll be able to find qualified people. For me, something that's really important is finding someone who's really going to foster the collaborative effort between staff and volunteers.
Okay.
As Mr. Lippett said before. I was always so proud as a new town meeting member hearing Pete Heckenblackner talk about how important our volunteers were and how many committees we had and the quality of our volunteers. And so I think that that is something that I would really like to see a new town manager really value. I think there has been a move towards nighttime government or daytime government as opposed to nighttime government. And I understand the reasons for it, but I do think that something is lost in that. And when I think of, people talk about, oh, Reading isn't the same small town that it used to be. And when I think of the small town, feel that I like, some of it has to do with, the physical aspect of the buildings and construction and what's going on. But really, a lot of it, what it has to do with, for me, is the feeling of government that I get. And, knowing that it's, who the staff are in certain departments. But, it's not always just being shepherded to the ombudsman, but you could go in, and if you needed to talk to the town manager, I know they're very busy, I know times have changed, but that, that's a possibility that you would be able to do with it, so you'd be able to do that. So that is when I think of, the aspects of a small town feel, is having a connection to my town government, and really fostering volunteerism and valuing volunteerism, and really that's an important aspect for me.
Okay, great. Thank you, Angela.
Thank you.
Yes.
Hi, can I just clarify the membership of the screening committee that the select board will establish?
Sure.
There's going to be 7 members on the screening committee, 2 select board representatives, 2 people who are department heads that live in Reading, and there's only 3 options: the police chief, fire chief, and the library director. So 2 out of those 3 will be selected.
Right.
2 select board members, 2 heads of department that live in town, the town moderator by right of his position, and 2 residents. And they've had about 37 applicants, I think, for the town manager interview. Most of them are men. So I guess we'll see what happens at the select board meeting.
But the town employees and the 2 select board members are women already. I don't know.
Well, you're assuming that they will.
Yeah.
No, but we have.
Yeah, if we could.
The 2 select board members on it too, so that's already getting to almost halfway.
Yeah. So, I did want to, Angela made a point about the skills, someone that has the financial and management, that, and obviously that is a high priority, having those skills and having the experience. A couple people have already mentioned having the background in municipal government. The one thing I didn't, and Angela mentioned how she was confident that we would have a great pool. I'm hopeful we have a great pool. I'm quite sure we'll have a great pool. With what Reading has to offer and our ability to attract candidates. But I didn't want to go without saying that it is a very tough market. Just so people are aware of that. In the last 4 or 5 years, almost 2/3 of the communities in Massachusetts have lost their town manager to retirement, or the natural churning that takes place when there is a retirement. So if Reading hires someone else from here in Massachusetts, there'll be another position that will open up, and so that happens. But the turnover has been tremendous. There really has been as all the baby boomers retire, that has created very much a seller's market. Many of the communities, as you go down the 128 belt, from roughly, I'll say, Linfield, all the way down to Norwood, almost every one of those communities has turned over within the last 3 years. So it gives you just a sense of just how competitive this is, and how there just aren't, and the issue, one of the issues that we have is that many people, the next generation back, have not necessarily gone into municipal management as a career. So finding people to move up is not an easy task. What used to be much larger pools, I think here in Reading we'll probably have a candidate pool of somewhere between 30 and 35 people that apply, of which probably a third will not necessarily have the qualifications. A third will be qualified, and a third will be people that might be good candidates, but probably there'd be a level of risk that would be associated with those. Risks sometimes pay off, but that's just something to give you some perspective on what's happening out there in the marketplace. Caitlin, do we have any other people? No? I thought everyone would.
I don't believe anyone else wants to speak at the moment.
Okay, all right. Somebody else here? Go ahead, you're welcome to speak again.
No, remember, I promised.
So somebody else would like to, sir?
I really was here just to listen. I did submit to be on the screening committee, as I was there when Bob was screened.
Sure.
But if I can attempt to kind of summarize what I'm hearing, right, and what you just said. Reading's looking for a more mature, experienced person to be able to address or gone through some of the things that Reading is maybe just recognizing now and other communities have gone through before us. Diversity and inclusion. The density of a community is, forever changing.
Right.
You need somebody who may have already gone through that.
Mm-hmm.
Yet you need somebody who's nimble, flexible enough, maybe young, right, in my head of that we can mold and understand where we want, as a community, want to take our town.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Right?
it does.
Which is hard to find, right? You need somebody strong enough to lead the department heads to say, that's not going to work anymore, the way we do that. I need you to go back to that developer and push harder and get our funds back. Yet, a lot of those rules and regulations are developed and built by volunteers and the committee, right? So we have that kind of balance of somebody that we're looking for to be able to handle all of that.
Right.
If I'm hearing what I heard tonight of.
Right.
And then it goes into the other aspects of working with not just Reading, right, but the state, which you know
Mm-hmm.
from ICMA, right?
Right.
Being able to work with the state reps and those on Beacon Hill to be able to get maybe more of our fair share of the pie than other communities.
Right, right. Absolutely. And really what it comes down to in many cases, and again, Reading isn't unique in this regard, is you want someone with the maximum amount of experience and skills, and someone who has a passion for the profession and a passion for the community in which they're serving, and oftentimes, there's a sort of a sense as you reach a point that you have so much experience and your skills are so strong that is the ultimate. But you have to have someone that's open to new ideas and innovation, and doesn't base themselves on what the experiences they've had in the past. So they're willing to step out and look at something different and look at something new, which really is a definition of leadership.
And when you've seen other, I don't know if they're lateral moves, changeovers in all of the different towns along 128, does it matter when you have someone going from like a very small community to one our size, or a bigger community to one our size? Should we be looking for somebody who's managed, say, a community of our population plus or minus 5,000? Like, could someone who manages a big community of 45,000 easily transition to what we have, given that we probably have, like, say, someone goes from a city to a town?
Mm-hmm.
Whereas I don't think if you had, someone who, I can't even name a town, like a town with 3,000 people, and then say, oh, well, I'm going to go to be a town manager of Reading, which is, 9 times the size.
It varies. It really depends upon the person. moving from a town of 45,000 or a small city of 45,000 to a town of like Reading, it could be done. It would probably be a challenge to find someone that would be interested in doing that, though, because chances are the issues that they're dealing with are more complex and challenging, and the right candidate will want those challenges. And so chances are good they'll stay in that type of setting. I will say that we shouldn't discount the town administrators or town managers from smaller communities. There's a community, I'm going to leave the names of the communities out of this, but that we did, where we had a town administrator from a town of roughly 7,000 people in the western part of the state. Everyone will be doing their research trying to figure out what I'm talking about here. And he became the town manager of a town roughly the size of Reading. Probably, I would argue, a little bit more complex than Reading, and has been very, very successful there. Very successful.
I think sometimes change is good.
Yeah. He came with just a tremendous amount of enthusiasm and excitement, and he replaced a manager who had been there a very, very, very long time. And it was beloved, but had been there a long time, and that change was going to be a tough thing for some people to adapt to, but he seems to have been very successful.
You don't get someone who's tired of dealing with the complexities or crime of a city and just wants, not quaint little community like Reading, but something they perceive as easier.
Let me ask you a question. Would you want someone that just wanted something easy?
To go off into the
No.
sunset, this is their step to retirement.
No, I
Right.
don't.
So,
Because that means in a few years, we'll be doing this all over again. I'm looking for someone who's going to come in here, who's committed to doing the work, who's passionate about what they're doing,
Right.
and the people that they're serving.
right.
That plans on being here longer than a year.
Yeah. I mean, you might, that's not to say that that's impossible. I don't want to say anything's impossible. But chances are you won't get someone like that unless there's some other reason for them relocating to the area.
Okay.
It could be something like that.
Yeah, I guess I was just thinking if they're burned out,
Yeah.
that kind of thing. They still have the energy, but they just don't want to do what they're doing in that kind
Yeah.
of environment. They want a different kind of.
Yeah.
But honestly, if you're burned out, I mean, the size of the community wouldn't matter, because if you're burned out on the tasks that you have to do, which won't change whether you change
Right.
Well, no
Yeah.
candidate.
numbers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Two things. One, no candidate is going to come forward and say, I'm burned out on my
Yeah.
job, so that's not realistic.
Yeah,
Would that be? I don't know. But I have a quick question is the residents, because both of our town managers have lived in the town.
Mhm.
Do we have a residence requirement?
You do not have a residency requirement. And we urge communities to not have residency requirements. I'll be very bold and blunt with you on that. As someone mentioned once at a meeting that I participated in, really managers should be chosen for their skills and not their zip code. Particularly in a competitive market, it becomes very challenging to attract candidates with residency requirements. Couple of points to that. One, particularly there's been a growing awareness of the importance of work-life balance, and if you never get away, then you risk burnout. The other is residency requirements that do exist are really throwbacks to a time when you were single earner households and there wasn't a spouse or a partner that was part of the equation. And if you tell someone that they have to move to Reading, then you're basically telling their spouse or whomever that they have to now commute a longer distance or give up their job. So, and the other challenge nowadays is housing. The market is just, we did a search recently, they had a residency requirement, they eliminated it. They went to the town meeting and had their charter modified to eliminate that. It has to go through the legislature, and it will. But when their candidates came forward, there were 5 homes in that community that were for sale with a price under $700,000. I think there were 15 homes for sale total in the community. And this is not a highly affluent community that we're talking about. And so that becomes another challenge for people. Particularly if you're trying to attract someone from an area that isn't quite as expensive, but here in Massachusetts. So, but what you want is you want someone that's engaged. You don't want someone who checks out. This is my opinion. I'm here to listen to you, but I'll tell you what I'd be looking for. I want someone that is engaged in the community, that doesn't check out at 5 o'clock and go home somewhere. You want someone that will come and spend the time in the community and be available. So, and that's one of our, I shouldn't say this because the candidates might be watching, but that's one of our questions. How engaged are you? So.
I think, I sat on a couple of the hiring this past year, and that was one of our must-haves. Like, you must be willing to become part of it, even though you don't live there, become part of the community, and attend certain things, whether it's, we have town day and you bring your family out and you come and enjoy town day. You're not working, but you're acclimating to our community as if it was yours as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. And most managers, I will say that most managers take that seriously and do that. So, somebody else. Caitlin.
Yes, Mark.
Yeah, sorry, if I come back with one more question.
Sure.
I stepped away, but I listened to most of their conversation. If this question's been asked, I apologize.
That's all right.
But you made it sound like finding a town manager similar to the housing market, right? Supply and demand. Doesn't seem like there's a great supply. Do you have any estimate at this time of how many candidates we can expect to want to participate in this process?
Sure.
And do you have a number in mind of, high-level candidates that, might be in that pool that we can expect? There's a committee being formed, as you know.
Right.
To, help with the process to put somebody before the select board. So just some idea of what we're looking at as far as candidates.
I think you'll.
I apologize if
That's all right. That's all right.
Keep it short and sweet.
Yeah, I expect that you probably have, my guess would be somewhere between 30, 35 applicants, of whom maybe a third will be highly qualified, or that meet the threshold, that have been town managers, been town administrators, been assistant managers perhaps, and then you'll drop down to another third that probably have some, perhaps have our department heads in a similar type of community, and it may come with strong finance, or may come with strong planning, or may come with strong HR, something of that sort. And then another third will be people who don't have municipal experience, or may not be the right, or wouldn't have the right set of experiences. So that's generally how it breaks down when we do these, I would say.
Thank you.
Certainly. Anybody else here who wants to speak, ask questions? give me their thoughts. No? All right. Caitlin, I think we're probably, I think it's 8 o'clock now, or close to 8. So we've been here, we've been doing this for about an hour. We've had a good crowd of people combined. Great. All right, thank you very much. All right, take care. Thanks, Caitlin. Mark? What's that? Oh, yes, there is, for those watching, particularly, those of you here, there is an online survey. Is it on it's on the town website? Please fill that out, answer the questions, and give us any comments. We will make sure that those go to the screening committee and to the board.
Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, take care. Thank you. Thanks. Thanks, Mark.